Hello everyone and welcome along to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. As you can tell by the southern accent, I'm not Rob Guest. He's off gallivanting on his holidays this week, but I'm joined by Alasdair Gold, who will be in about as good a mood as I am after yesterday's result. How are you, Ali?
I'm not great, and I can hear the irritation in your voice already. The whole intro was just really irritated, and that's probably going to be pretty much the theme of this podcast, because there was so much that was so annoying about yesterday. I think I'm laughing because it's like gallows humor. I think I'm just kind of trying to convince myself it'll all be okay.
It's what we're used to at Spurs, gallows humour, really.
Oh, it really is, and they're just horrible to us. They're horrible to the fans. It's like the fifth time in a row that they've lost a game before the international break, to leave us with a fortnight of just stewing in misery, a rubbish performance. I mean, 5 times in a row. Have they no care for us reporters that have to write and do podcasts and you know, knowing that our Tottenham Hotspur audience are just going to be like, why would I want to read about that lot? But that's more our personal problems. But oh my goodness, it was dreadful, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I should point out that my mood was not improved by the fact that we got through about 10 minutes of recording this podcast before I was rudely interrupted in the studio here in Canary Wharf. So,
we're going with that. We're going.
Yeah, I'm going with it.
I
don't care. It's put me in an even worse mood than yesterday did. So there we go. Yeah, we'll get stuck straight into Spurs, shall we? Because why not? Let's talk about how dreadful that was. Yeah, you summed it up with the right word there. We could use any number of words, and certain words I could use today in the mood that I'm in that will have to be bleeped out somewhere along the line by our multimedia producer.
Do you have a bleep button there?
I don't think we do have a bleep button here, no. And if I was to look for the bleep button, I would do what you've hated so far, in pushing my laptop screen down, and you would get a nice view of my somewhere else.
Yeah. Lee, when we were trying to set this up, because should point out, this is of probably no real interest to people, but Lee is currently in the office in Canary Wharf, and I'm at home, and we're doing it across the wonders of the internet. And yeah, Lee's in a studio where he's been using his laptop and forgetting that at the top of the laptop is the camera. And every time he keeps closing his laptop slightly, he's positioning his camera towards his groin area. And I think a combination of factors, with Tottenham invading people into the podcast studio, Lee's crotch, it's not been the greatest start to this podcast. So if we sound even more irritated than normal, it's a collection of all the factors. But it's not going to stop us diving into this performance and ripping it apart, and also looking at what has to happen next.
And just to say, we're recording this now at the time I would normally have lunch, so I'm getting quite hungry as well. So there we are.
On top of all of that.
On top of it all, yes. Tottenham yesterday, home to Ipswich Town, opportunity to go third in the table if other results went our way. And Tottenham turn in one of the worst performances I've seen for some time, lose 2-1 to Ipswich, and are now 10th in the table. And everything that could have been rosy is looking pretty diabolical at the minute. How was it in the stadium?
Diabolical, pretty much. If Spurs were someone, they'd be like a kid at Christmas where someone extends their hand with a gift and they slap it away. I don't want that. That's what.
How many times does it happen?
Just all the time, honestly. The amount of times that we've just those words, if results go for us. I just remember those words so many times, because we're always looking at it and thinking, okay, if we can compute this, it's like that. Is it the Hangover thing the meme where you see all like the and I think there's an Always Sunny in Philadelphia one as well, where they're trying to work out all the permutations, and that's what we're kind of like. I don't know why we bother, because at the end of it, whatever happens elsewhere, Spurs are going to go, no, stuff that. That's fine. We'll absolutely mess this up. We'll take on a team that has not won a Premier League game in 22 years. We'll allow them to do it because, it's just fun, isn't it? No, it's not. It's so frustrating. Like I said, 5th international break in a row they've done this. And we could be having a completely different podcast right now. We could be having a podcast where we're talking about a team in 3rd place, sitting above Chelsea and Arsenal. Suddenly, how does that look? All the praise that Chelsea and Arsenal have got over certain points of this season, yet Spurs were above them in this fantasy land that unfortunately never happened. So you could say they're in third place. You could say they're in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup with a home tie to come. You could say that they're at the halfway point in the Europa League group stage. They've won 3 out of their 4 games, sitting in a good position. That's the podcast I'd be liking to do today. Unfortunately, Spurs conspired to be their own worst enemy yet again and put in a performance that was so... Oh, it was just so like, yeah, we've won this game, lads. Yeah, look, they're in the bottom 3. Without taking into account, even in the slightest, that the top teams play the bottom 3 teams as if they're also a top 3 team. That is the way you approach it. You don't go in and think, it's fine with us, mainly the fan. The fans can believe that they should be rocking up. That's fine, because that doesn't really impact. Well, mostly it doesn't. The only thing I was going to say was the atmosphere was a bit weird. But that's mostly, I think, to do with the fact that Tottenham are absolutely horrendous in the first half and go into half-time with a 2-0 deficit to overcome. But yeah, inside the stadium, it was as bad as it probably seemed on TV.
It was one of those where it was just there was control of the football, as is often the case with Tottenham under Ange Postecoglou. We had all the possession, but never looked like we were going to do anything with it. And I think I've said before that under Ange, you have that belief that things are going to change. After a poor first half, you think, oh, it's all right. We're normally better in the second half. Once he gets stuck into them, we'll turn it around and we'll have a situation like with Villa scoring 3 goals in 8 minutes or whatever it was. I just never had that belief on Sunday that we were going to get back into it, even after Bentanur scored the header from the corner. It just didn't feel like we had what it took to get back into the game against Ipswich Town, who had not won a Premier League game all season, which is just ridiculous. And yeah, a few weeks ago we did it against Crystal Palace, not won a game all season. Come on then, lads, it's Tottenham now. Here you go. Here's what you've been waiting for to give you the boost that you need. We've just done it to Ipswich now, and I'm sat here wondering what's going to happen when we play Southampton next month and when we play Wolves. Yeah, not great. Not great for my blood pressure, which my wife is always telling me is already too high. So yeah, not brilliant.
It must be soaring right now.
Yeah,
with the start to the day. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, 100% really. I agree with all that. When I was kind of saying about the atmosphere in the stadium, I can't tell whether, because when Bentanur scored, there was a roar and there was a little moment where everyone seemed to believe. I couldn't tell whether it's kind of started to go a bit quiet again. There was one point when Pedro Porro was like taking a corner and he was like kind of doing the hands in the air thing to the fans, as if to say, "Come on, let's give us a bit of a roar," which kind of work. I don't know whether the fans just didn't, like you said, didn't believe that Spurs were going to get back into it, or whether they assumed they were going to get back into it. I don't know, but there was never that kind of roar. And again, very quickly have to say, I'm not blaming the fans for yesterday in any way, shape or form. It was the players. The players, slightly the manager, but I would put more of this one on the players. That was a good enough team to go out there and get the result. I mean, you talk about, I've got the stats for you. 66% of the possession Spurs had, 552 passes to Ipswich is 278, 17 shots on goal to Ipswich is 8. Vicario only had to make 1 save. Technically, he could have made 2 more, but he didn't get to the ball. And Muric made 5 saves. But Ipswich just kind of kept them at arm's length for a lot of it. 33 clearances, 3 blocks. Spurs did have their chances. There was a big one for Brennan Johnson early on, which he touched wide. Son's terrific kind of curling ball, which was actually similar in a way to the one that he put on, was it for Johnson as well, wasn't it, against Villa? And and then Solanke late on had a big chance in the final seconds that the keeper saved with his leg. There was some discussion that maybe he should have squared it. I think the ball across, I think it was to Son, wasn't probably on at that moment. I think it would have been a difficult ball to get across. I think a striker's always going to have the shot. What else? Solanke ruled out goal from VAR.
He knew as well, didn't he?
He did. You could see the way he didn't really celebrate. It's a tough rule, but it is the rule. Accidental or not, the ball hits your hand, that's that. But I did feel like his hand was moved by the defender's challenge. It's like but yeah, it's no goal. So I'm not kind of quibbling about it anyway. Just a performance from start to finish where Spurs just thought they'd turn up and get the 3 points, and that's not how Postecoglou football works. It can be a beautiful system of football, but it requires intensity, high pressing, movement, not just expect. And this is something Postecoglou's always gone on about. Don't expect the football to win the game for you. That's a structure for you to work within. If you don't do the required intensity and, as he calls it, conviction to make the runs off the ball, provide options for the players, things like that, finish off the chances, the football's not going to win you the game on its own. You have to bring more to it. And I mean, question for you. What do you think about the leadership of the team on the pitch in terms of among the players?
Yeah, well, it wasn't there at all yesterday, that's for sure. There was nothing out there, as I say, that made me think we were going to get back. There was no oomph, there was no desire. You mentioned Pedro Porro there, perhaps kind of trying to whip the crowd up, but I don't think you see that very much. It's a very new thing. It's a very new thing to come, I think, into football. But you see other clubs' players do it a lot, and I don't think Spurs do it very often. They kind of try and whip the fans up into a frenzy. Now, you can argue that it's on the fans to do that themselves, or it's on the players to make the fans want to do that with what they're performing on the pitch. But sometimes you need that kind of connection between the players and the fans, and someone doing that can really get things going and can really build the atmosphere. We know how good the stadium is for the noise reverberation around it, when it's really rocking. So yeah, you do need the players to do that sometimes, and I don't think we have that. And yeah, leadership. Well, I don't know where it was. Yesterday. Sonny's not he's not the vocal. Tell players off, pointing and shouting kind of leader. We know that. Christian Romero can be that person. Don't think he really showed it yesterday. Maybe the fact that it's international break coming up and they're looking forward to going away with their countries, obviously. There must be something in that. As you said, it's 5 in a row where Spurs have gone into an international break with a defeat, which is absolutely shocking, and makes your job difficult in trying to get readers onto the site this week in an international break, going into it with a defeat. So do you think that's a mentality thing? Is that are players worried about missing out on playing for their countries? Are they could be pulling back slightly? There could be, yeah.
There's too many games, isn't it?
Got to be something in the back of players' minds where that is. After we coming back from this international break, we haven't got one until March, is it? Next year, or February or March next year. Yeah. So it's full focus on club football essentially from then on, and I think you'll see a very different mindset from players in that time. But yeah, there must be something in the back of players' minds that's worried about an injury or worried about not making that tackle and not going 100%, just taking 10% off to make sure they get through it and get to see their international teammates, because for a lot of players, it is the pinnacle of their career, isn't it, playing for their country? So there's a sense of understanding it, but at the same time, Tottenham pay your wages. This is you're there to do a job for Tottenham, and if things happen beyond your control because you've put 100% effort in for your club, then so be it.
Yeah, I'd love to believe it's just a coincidence, but how many games can it keep kind of being until you have to really start questioning? I'm sure if I ask Postecoglou about it at the next press conference ahead of the City game, he'll go, no, it's nothing to do with it. You know, we've seen other games, and he'll probably say like Palace and things like that. And so there's other games where they haven't showed the required intensity. I think that's probably what makes it all the more annoying that, they've won 9 out of 13 games, but my goodness, those 4 games have been really, really disappointing. And they're like incredibly disappointing in the way they've just stumbled and stuttered and failed to provide anything to kind of cling on to, really. And the other thing, obviously, we've got now is the win-loss has returned in the Premier League. Remember when we got that before?
No, tell me.
Antonio Conte. I remember writing that phrase every week. Win-loss, 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 because that was how it was. And he was like, he's like, I don't get it. I don't understand why we can't put back-to-back wins together in the. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have actually been all competitions rather than the Premier League. I can't remember, but yeah, that was frustrating, and it feels like 10th place kind of fits that form. You know, if you're going to be a win-loss team, you're going to be a mid-table team. And look, the table is still ridiculously tight. That's why we're talking about they could have been 3rd or 10th, because there's 3 points separates 3rd from 11th, I think it is now in the Premier League table. So yes, of course, if it's a big ask, because the fixtures coming up are incredibly tough, and we can kind of talk about that as well a little bit later. But Spurs win a couple of games in a row. I know it's a big thing for them this season. I don't think, is it Brentford and United? I'm trying to think. Is that the only 2 occasions they've won back? Sorry, the only occasion they've won back-to-back games in the Premier League, I think, this season. If they can do that and find some consistency, it's a table you can move up quite quickly in. I would say only Liverpool are probably the only consistent team right now, aren't they? So it's one of those where I know there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I know it was, you know, I mean, you can hear us in the way we started this podcast. the emotions are there for anyone that's Spurs fans through and through. But it's still right there on the cusp of it can be an absolutely excellent season still. It's just these kind of performances just kind of erode a lot of the confidence that, you know, otherwise would be there.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask, what did you make of the centre-back pairing yesterday, Romero and Dragusin together? Because I've seen Dragusin have good games. I think me and Guesty spoke about it a few weeks back, having a good game against Man City, obviously in the Carabao Cup, when he came on. I get frustrated sometimes. I think you've mentioned leadership there, the lack of communication sometimes when there's an opportunity for either Dragusin to leave the ball and Vicario will claim it because there's no danger or whatever, or for him to. I was never a great footballer. I was never a good header of the ball when I played football, but an opportunity to find an easy header to a teammate when he's trying to clear the ball from a long ball, and just gets involved and lumps a header forward to absolutely no one, when either could be leaving it to Vicario or could be finding a teammate with it. And just that communication, I think, was missing and can be missing on occasion at Spurs at the back.
Yeah, I'd probably say Vicario is their most vocal leader. I think that's kind of a role he's grown into at Spurs, but I'm not a huge fan of like the keeper being like a captain type. Probably, you know, we had Lloris for a long time. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I prefer someone probably in the centre of the pitch is probably a better one, or a centre back even. In terms of Romero and Dragusin, I think it was always going to be the centre back pairing with Van der Ven out. I think Dragusin needs the game time. He was good against City. He was pretty good against Villa as well. I do wonder whether with him right now, is he a better defender when they're under a little bit of a siege, when there's kind of more coming towards them that he's got to deal with, perhaps? Whereas when Spurs are on the front foot and they've got to kind of build from the back, does that maybe put a little bit of pressure on some areas of his game that are still kind of, I guess, in their infancy, in terms of when he was at Genoa, he wasn't having to really play the ball out from the back. He wasn't having to play around a press quickly and things like that. Whereas at Spurs, that's kind of exactly what the defenders have to do. And you could argue, if you want, that, you know, recruitment-wise, is that not something that they should have looked for, a player that can handle that? I still, you know, I think people are writing him off now already. He's 22 years old. He's going to have a learning curve in the Premier League, and he hasn't been a terrible acquisition by Spurs at all. He, like I say, City and Villa just recently you can count, and there's been other games as well where he's been very good. But should Romero be leading better alongside him? Probably. I always wonder with Romero how good his communication skills are in English, because I think his English is reasonable. He can understand English. We haven't had any interviews in English yet with him. I don't think he's at that level. I'm sure they must be able to communicate, because he communicates with Van der Ven. The biggest worry for me, I mean, Dragusin, yes, there was an early kind of misplaced kind of spinning header that led to an early chance for Ipswich that Vicario saved with his legs. And then you could argue maybe for the first goal, he'd come across to cover through Doggy, and that shifted the whole back four across and left space. My probably biggest worry in terms of defending, and defending is a weird one because I was looking up the stats. They're actually going into the game. Only 3 sides have conceded fewer goals than Spurs in the Premier League. And who scored that we always look at for their stat-based stuff. They kind of give ratings to teams' defenses based on everything, based on shots allowed per game, goals conceded, things like that. And Spurs were actually the 3rd placed, best defense according to their stats. So I do think it's one of these weird things where they've conceded too many goals, but they kind of haven't conceded that many shots. I think they're 2nd in the league for fewest shots at goal conceded. Yet when the teams are getting in those positions, they're putting the ball in the net, and that's obviously an issue within itself. And this is a question for you, really. Are you worried about the amount of goals that Spurs concede in that little kind of sector at the back post? And it's often between Romero and Porro.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it briefly on a podcast with Guesty a few weeks ago. It's so frustrating to watch it happen time and time again that the defence gets so narrow, and there's always space for the wide man on our right to get in behind, essentially. And I feel like it should be something that should be easily coachable and easily sorted, but it's just not. It's happening far too often for my liking, and probably for a lot of fans' liking. Yeah, I am a football coach of an under-14s team, but I'm not a football coach. I don't know how to sort that, essentially. But there's enough
Wilmot
people. Out. We needed a last-minute equaliser at the weekend to draw 3-3. So there must be enough people around at Tottenham to be able to sort that out. Because you're right. You bring it. It happens all the time. There's always space for the left winger of any opposition team to get in behind the Spurs defence.
Yeah, and it's whether that's putting a cross into the box, like a low cross that we saw for the second goal, which was a comedy of errors, or whether it's a player like is Schmodix? Is that how you pronounce it? I never know. Is or him to find the space to have that shot in the for the first goal. That one I'm going to put a bit on Brennan Johnson as well.
They're both kind of looking at each other.
Yeah, there's a ball up in the air, and it's like Johnson could just steam him there and head it away. But he almost looks at Schmodix, and it's a bit like, I want to use my foot, but if I use my foot, I might hit him and give a penalty away. It's like, no, go and head it. Use the big thing on top of your neck and head it away. Because, the Ipswich player is probably thinking to himself, I've got so much time. I could even do something fancy, like an overhead kick. The second goal was just absolute comedy of errors. Romero sweeps out. I don't know whether he's just joining up with the play or trying to play offside or what he was doing, but that left a big old gap in behind him, which the player runs into. I think Schmodix again gets the ball, knocks it across, and Vicario. Where do you put the blame there? Do you feel like Vicario should have pushed that into a different area? Is it on Dragishin to react quicker? Where's the blame there?
I don't really want to blame Vicario too much, because I think you'll have instances in a season where goalkeepers will not do the right thing, essentially. I think we've criticised him for coming for crosses and defending set pieces and stuff like that before. I've always seen him as a pretty good shot stopper and pretty good at knowing his angles and knowing where to put the ball. So, yes, there's an element of blame on him for that, but it doesn't happen often with him, I don't think. So I'm reluctant to really go in on him for it.
It was apparently a bit of an issue in Serie A. I remember the reporters at the time writing that he would sometimes push shots back into the 6-yard box, and that was something that kind of needed to work on. It's a difficult one because it's a reflex stop. It can go anywhere. I probably wouldn't put the blame on Dragishin. You look at it back and it looks clumsy, but I do wonder how much time he had to react. And then, Liam Delap puts the ball in there. And as one of our Arsenal reporters gleefully told us today Liam Delap wasn't even born the last time Ipswich won a Premier League game. Brilliant. Thanks for that. That's a great stat. We really needed that. And then, Spurs fight their way back into it in terms of Bentancour's header, which was a good header, good delivery from Porro, probably the only good delivery from a set piece that there was all game. What did you think of Bentancour yesterday?
I love him. Anyway,
right, enough about that. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, he's a quality player, and he's guilty of going missing at times in matches, but I think he was a standout yesterday of a poor bunch. I thought he was best around, and that's not just because he scored the goal. Obviously, I thought it was all round play. I think you mentioned it in your player ratings. After the yellow card, did kind of fade a little bit as the game wore on.
He lost his head a little bit as well.
He did, yeah. Quite what he was doing, I don't know. He's kind of come from the side, and he's claiming he won the ball, but I don't think he did win the ball for that. And then throws the ball down in disgust, which is going to get a booking anyway from any referee in England, and then proceeds to kind of shout in his face as well. So yeah, he did lose his head a little bit, but I thought the way he knits stuff together so well, and it just would have been nice if everyone else was on his wavelength yesterday and everyone else was willing to kind of play through the lines like he was.
Yeah, there is a certain irony at the fact that I feel like we're seeing more of the Bentancour pre-ACL injury just as we're probably, unless there's a miracle, likely to lose him for however many games, that this potential FA ban or independent commission ban, we're still waiting to hear on that. It could just be any point. That's what we keep getting told. It could just suddenly happen. It could be a while. When it's kind of these type of issues that aren't, on the pitch things, it's this, Dele Alli, a different scenario, but I think that was about 3 months after the charge. That was also complicated by the fact that you had the pandemic and things like that. But yeah, I feel like we're suddenly going to be slapped with here's what's happened to Rodrigo Bentancour, and it will probably come when there's no Europa League games, so he can't even kind of intersperse his appearances in there. And he's also on 4 yellow cards. So they could slap another one on there if he gets another yellow card. Another question then. Do you think that Postecoglou should have reacted quicker with his substitutions?
Yeah, well, my son certainly did. Was expecting changes quicker than they came. We weren't going anywhere, were we? I think everyone could see that the team weren't going anywhere. There was just such a real kind of solemnity about the team yesterday. So yeah, could have changed things. Although 10 minutes to go, Maddison came on, didn't he, and gave the ball away a couple of times and showed why he's not kind of making the first team at the minute. Who else came on? I'm just trying to think who came off the bench in the end. Basuma, yeah, I would have liked to have seen a bit more drive from Basuma a bit earlier. I did expect him to come on at half time, to be honest with you, just to try and bring the ball out of defence and use that drive that he brings to the team.
And your friend Timo.
Timo was excellent yesterday, I thought, actually, when he came on. Apart from missing a chance that perhaps I would have expected any other player to score than Timo Werner. I thought he was direct. Kind of came on and wanted the ball and just drove at the Ipswich back line, got in behind a few times, and he showed that he actually wanted it yesterday when he came off the bench. Which I don't praise him. I don't praise him very often, but yeah, I thought he was pretty damn good when he came on yesterday, and probably deserved a bit more time, to be fair.
It's very high praise. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say he was excellent, but certainly he made an impact. Absolutely. Very direct in his play. Had that really nice run that he did when the keeper tipped over his shot over the bar. And absolutely, it's like almost like a 1-2 with Sonny, which he then blazed over the bar. Which, unfortunately, that was more the classic Timo catalogue that we've seen. And it was. He did say, I do worry that he's kind of carrying this groin injury that he's had in recent weeks and how that affects things, and whether he just needs these 2 weeks off now or not. In terms of subs, really, I think it was a case of the missing players more than anything. You've got your Richarlison, you throw him in there to battle up top. You've got Wilson Odobert, you throw him on for the pace. Even someone like the youthful fearlessness of Mikey Moore, you put him in there as well just to have something different. I do feel is a bit hampered by that. I think Timo was the obvious one, but like I said, how fit he is, I don't know. James Maddison just isn't in his groove at all right now. Came on, had 9 passes in about 15 minutes. And like you said, a few of those were giving the ball away. Just didn't impact the game at all. I'm loath to kind of really go in on the substitutions because I did kind of feel like they were pushing. I didn't feel like it was definitely going to happen, but I did feel they were pushing, and it depends who you take off. Kulusevski's had a terrific season, and you kind of would bank on him coming up with something late on because of his fitness. Even Brennan Johnson, who I didn't think really had much of an impact, he's the kind of guy that will pop up with a big goal in big moments still. And then Sonny's your captain. I actually thought Sonny was all right yesterday. I don't think he was. I think he created quite a lot. And then Solanke and Bentanur for me were the two that I think probably came away with from the game with a bit of credit. I thought Solanke's his hold-up play is just brilliant. Yep. And the way he can dribble past people, I think, is something that maybe we weren't expecting to be as good. And he was playing with a jarred knee that he got in the first half. So with hindsight, of course, it's always going to look like he should have made subs earlier. I just don't know how much they would have changed it. That's the only problem. I just feel like there was an attitude issue yesterday.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. We're probably more than halfway through the recording now, so it's probably best, given I've had a number of comments on YouTube videos, that I can't hold a candle to Alasdair Gold when it comes to speaking about the benefits of NordVPN. I'll leave it in Ali's hands today.
You've put the pressure on me there now. It's Nord. People have heard me speak about Nord. It was good actually in the last podcast because I had real kind of practical ability to use Nord services while I was away. I'm very jealous of Guesty being away right now. Not so that I'm not spending time with you, but just because if you want to escape any result, that would be the one to escape for a little while. Nord I used when I went away to America recently. It was really helpful in being able to switch from my device to thinking it was back in the UK. So when we were kind of waiting for flights, things like that, I could watch the shows that I would still watch back at home. And also really kind of, I've never used these before, but I use Saley as well, which is like their eSIM. And it absolutely saved me loads of money, which I normally have to give to the powers that be in the world of mobile phones because of the horrendous roaming fees you get when you head out of Europe. And Saley eSIM voucher was superb and absolutely saved me loads. So I really recommend that as well. And on top of all of that, NordVPN, as we know, is the fastest VPN in the world. It means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. There's also other elements to it. It may be that you want to protect your device if you're logged into a public Wi-Fi. Because sometimes, that can certainly make it easier, I guess, for people to get into your devices and take things off of them. It could be that you want to book flights or something else from a foreign country, which can often be cheaper if you set your device to thinking it's in that country and you get a different version of their website and different access to different things. Or even, I'm presuming you could maybe do it for streaming and watch things as well. From abroad. And to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, you can go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest, and our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. And in case anyone's wondering what the little kind of noises and things like that you might be hearing in the background, is just to top off Lee's day even further. He's looked down at his laptop, which is the thing that is hosting the whole recording pretty much for this podcast, and realized that the battery life on his laptop is about to die. So the noises you've heard are Lee trying to put a charger into that laptop, and judging by his face, it might not have worked. But yeah, that's the banging around in the background you're getting, and why I'm obviously quite clearly filling for time while waiting for Lee to come back to his microphone. And there he is.
Here I am. Apologies for that. Yes, the battery life on my laptop is dying, and I've just plugged it in, and it's not made any difference whatsoever. So yeah, I'm going to carry on looking under the desk as to what's going on. But thanks for the benefits of NordVPN there, Ali. You're absolutely right. You're much better at it than I am. So yeah, so many noises, so many things going wrong. I don't know what's going on today. Apologies to everyone watching, listening. At least it might raise a smile and a laugh out of people when you absolutely need it right now as a Spurs fan. So yeah, where do we go? Do we need to talk about Ipswich anymore? Where do we move on from that now?
Should we talk about the press conference afterwards?
Yes.
I can give a little.
You can talk about that, and I can go underneange the desk and find out why the plug is not charging my laptop.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So, in the press conference itself, Ange was in a very how do I put this? Subdued mood. He'd just come through, and there's some video footage of him walking through the tunnel or into the tunnel area after the game, and clearly someone, quite understandably frustrated fans, someone said something down to him which he didn't like. He just kind of glared back at them. Actually, that was a bit of a theme at the end of the game, and again, understandably, because they lost to a team they really should be beating. I think Pedro Porro went over to the south stand and got himself. I think he was trying to applaud and almost apologize, but unfortunately, he got. How do I put this? It got some words said back to him, I'm imagining, which he maybe didn't expect to be quite as vocal or strong. And yeah, that was a little kind of eye-opener. He did put a really good post on social media after the game, or his team did, whoever does his social media. It was very clear in what he was in what he needed to say, and apologizing and taking accountability for it. But Postecoglou's press conference itself, very downbeat affair. Very not what you want to see from a manager. He kind of, I wouldn't say he looked beaten. I mean, they were beaten, but he looked very down by it. He called it an unacceptable performance as well. And he took the result on his shoulders. The exact quote he used when he was asked about the inconsistency, he said, "That's down to me. That's my responsibility. The inconsistency we're having this year, ultimately it comes down to me and my approach, and something I need to try and fix and see if I can help the players in that area." We didn't start the game well at all. It was all sort of passive, without the ball, with the ball. I felt we didn't get the tempo right or the intensity right, and then we gave ourselves a mountain to climb. Second half, we were in the ascendancy, and we had opportunities, obviously, but we didn't do enough with them. It's a difficult one. I don't know whether that's really him taking entire responsibility. I think it is to a degree, because the inconsistency is under his watch. I do think he's maybe shielding the players slightly from the way they played and the performance as well. By the way, anyone who wants to watch the YouTube video of this podcast is going to have a great time, because you're going to see Lee panicking in the background, trying to get his laptop to be charged up before it dies and the whole podcast ends. You're going to see him going underneath a desk. You're going to see repeated crotch shots that I warned you about earlier, as he keeps closing his laptop and completely forgetting that the camera on it will point towards his groin region. But yeah, it's it's all a bit chaotic in the background. And we not only had Postecoglou having a bit of an understandably downbeat press conference. I think the press conference lasted all of 3.5, 4 minutes. It's, we kind of asked a certain amount of questions about it, but ultimately it's the same things happening. It's and you could tell there was only so much we were going to get out of him. I think his radio interviews were only like a minute, 90 seconds long, some of them. So yeah, down, very down. And then I don't know how he was with the players after the game, but Sonny certainly came out in his club interview and apologized. He said, I think I've got his quotes here. He said, let's go here. I did think I had him here. Maybe I don't. But yeah, he was very apologetic about it and the way Spurs played. I feel like we've heard that a fair few times now from Sonny. And it's, that's his job as a captain, I guess. But he said he actually kind of indicated that he felt Spurs had come away from the structure and plan that Postecoglou had for them. He said, you've got to believe even more in like the Postecoglou way, because we could be a bright team, a really strong team. You can see it and everyone's seen it. In these type of games, you've got to think in a really mentally strong way, because teams like Villa, you've got to go really strong. And the next game you go against Ipswich and it's the same opponent, same competition. Everyone is expecting we win this game, but in football, you never get a free win. You have to earn it and you have to work hard. We've got to believe more, and then we have to be more disciplined, that's for sure. Everybody has to be more disciplined, and the structure and the plan, you've got to just follow it. I think is the main part of our strength, and we can make it even stronger. I hope we can be stronger when we come back from the international break. And yeah, so that's the captain. That's the captain of Tottenham Hotspur, who is, unfortunately, we have heard this so many times, the apologies, and it's always before an international break when they head off and escape as well. There's fixes to be made, definitely. We can see that. We can see that on the pitch. I don't think they're quite as major. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I don't think they're as major and huge as perhaps they feel like after a painful defeat like this. I mean, I was going through some of the stats, and there's stats galore, whatever you want to take from various things. But Spurs are the Premier League's top scorers. They've recorded the second most shots on goal per game in the Premier League, 17.2 per game. They've also had the second most off-target shots per game, 6.3. They've missed the joint third highest number of big chances, 24. I think I remember looking at they've created the third most chances in the Premier League as well. So there's lots of opportunity for them to win games. There's lots of opportunity for them to score goals. And as I said, they've also got the second highest XG in the Premier League with 20.28, if you're into all of your XG stuff. And as I said, defensively, they've allowed the second fewest amount of shots per game in the competition with 7.8. And they still have only conceded from 2 set pieces in the league all season, while also got another goal, didn't they, attacking-wise from a set piece. I think they're joint third for goals scored from attacking set pieces. So that's the weird thing, is that people immediately, I think, go to the set pieces, yet we're seeing that actually defensively and attacking wise, they're kind of sorting that out. So things are being fixed in that respect. But yeah, it's an interesting time. Can you hear me, Lee Wilmot?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is your laptop charged up now or charging?
No.
Oh, great stuff.
So yeah, I've been under the desk. I've been here, there, and everywhere while you've been giving us a nice monologue about Ange and the press conference. And there's one free plug socket underneath the desk, which I've plugged the laptop into, and it's not working. And then while you were talking, I lost all power on the podcast system behind my laptop, so I couldn't hear anything, couldn't talk. Yes, this has been great today. I'm glad you invited me on today.
This is a Tottenham Hotspur of podcasts, isn't it? Right now, it's just all gone very wrong. I mean, how much are we looking at percentage-wise with your laptop?
5% battery left.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So with that in mind, we should probably start wrapping it up, I think, because I think everything is tied into your laptop, which is, honestly, if you're listening to this in an audio way, I really would recommend coming to the YouTube channel and watching this, because how I've managed to, I'm going to give myself some credit, how I've managed to say all of the stuff I just said without cracking up while watching Lee bashing around, going under a desk in the office, and and also giving us groin shots, is unbelievable. And now he's frozen, which makes me wonder whether Lee's laptop has actually just died. And now I'm here on my own in the podcast, which is a very real scenario. The screen is frozen. For anyone watching this on YouTube, you're just going to see Lee's face looking very stern into the image. So, yeah, I mean, I can sign us off anyway. That's absolutely fine. If Lee comes back, he comes back. If not, this is going to make for a very bizarre experience for people listening in the audio format of that. So where do Spurs go from now? Where do they go from this? I know that there's a discontent, especially on social media, more than anything, I would say, with people questioning Postecoglou, the style of football and everything. Personally, I'm kind of someone that I don't know whether I would want. I just don't feel like feel like the Spurs way has been to constantly chop and change managers. We've seen so many. We've seen so very many during our time as fans. I've seen it so many times in my just 8 years in covering the club as a journalist. And it's led Spurs nowhere. Different managers have come into this club, managers with loads of trophies, loads of managers with less so on their CV, and they've all come out the other side having achieved pretty much nothing in terms of tangible silverware. And even the one who achieved something in terms of silverware, and Juan de Ramos, he was gone a couple of months into the next season because the league performances were just absolutely dreadful, and they were, second from the bottom in that. Of course, people will say that the constant in all of that is the ownership and Daniel Levy as the chairman of the club. And certainly, I do feel like Spurs have an allergy to stability below boardroom level. It kind of feels like everything has remained in place above a certain level. Everything underneath has been a constant ripping up and changing and trying every which way of philosophy and manager, and it not working. You can read whatever you want to read into that. But ultimately, for me, when it comes to the manager, I want to see someone given a little bit of time. I do. This is the thing about rebuilds. Rebuilds are always messy things. They're always things that are going to be problematic. They're going to have stop-start nature to them. They're going to have matches that irritate the hell out of us, like the one yesterday. But that's kind of part of the process. And the only teams that I see out there having sustained success in England are the teams that have got stability. We've seen Pep Guardiola. I know there's more to it. There's finance involved and things like that as well. But ultimately, Pep Guardiola has been there for, 8-9 years now, and they've won so many trophies during that time. Even what Arne Slot's doing now, that is built on the foundations of what Jurgen Klopp was able to build at Liverpool for years. Even with Arsenal, you could argue they've not done it in the league, and they're 8-9 points off the top this time, but they've won trophies, domestic cups, and that has come through a period of stability with their manager as well. So yeah, that's the one thing Spurs have only really tried once over certainly the ENIC Daniel Levy era. Even before that, to be honest, it wasn't particularly great either for a long time. And Pochettino was the one that got time. He got 5.5 years, and I don't think it's any shocking coincidence that was the time where Spurs actually challenged at the top. 2 seasons where they finished third when they should have finished second. They finished second against the Chelsea Conte winning season as well, and obviously got to a Champions League final where they all got watches beforehand, which was great. Not trophies, but that's what it is, really. Unfortunately, we're a club that we're desperate for silverware. We're desperate for trophies. We're desperate for just to see our team challenge and be a team that. I'm going way back in the past as well. If you want to see when Spurs were kind of consistent challengers, we're going back to Bill Nick times. They were a cup team after that as well. We're going way back, which is why, when we heard Daniel Levy say last season, Tottenham, we've got our Tottenham back. And I was kind of thinking, like, what Tottenham? What is the Tottenham we're getting back? In my lifetime, I haven't seen anything other than I was too young really to remember the UEFA Cup win in '84. I was only very, very, very young. For me, it's been, FA Cup, couple of League Cups, things like that. So the Tottenham back that I want is probably something new. I don't know if I want Tottenham back. I want a new Tottenham, and maybe that's what stability brings with it. We'll see. But up next, Spurs have got a tough run. They go away to City. And they don't really get much easier than that afterwards as well. You've got Roma at home, although they're in a bit of a mixed time right now, going through a couple of managers and caretaker managers. Fulham in the Premier League, who are a bit of a funny team that can beat anyone. Bournemouth away, again, a team that can beat anyone. Then we've got the massive Chelsea match, and we know what happened last season in that. And then they head off across the border into Rangers. And a couple of weeks later, you've got the Carabao Cup quarter-final against what will be rumoured Amrin's Manchester United side as well. So it doesn't get any easier. There's a lot more to it. And yeah, oh my goodness. We'll see how it all goes. If it's as disastrous as this podcast has gone thus far, then we're going to be writing about a whole raft of changes. But I'm hopeful that it's just about tweaks. It's about little things that need to be changed. Postecoglou's kind of admitting there's different things he needs to do. He's always said he evolves as a manager, and hopefully we will see that in the weeks ahead. Because this Tottenham team, when they play well under Postecoglou, it's the best football I've seen in years at Tottenham. Absolutely years. Probably, maybe even in my lifetime, when they're really, really playing as they should. But they need to be doing that in complete games, not just sections of games. That's the key. Because when they're playing poorly, then it just takes you back to when they were pouring it under Conte, under Mourinho, under Nuno, and the end of the Poch time when they really got stale. So he needs to find the consistency that so few of others have been able to find. And hopefully that comes in the week ahead. So, yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw all of the mayhem. You saw me getting left on my own just on the screen towards the end. So like I say, yeah, if you're listening on the audio, do go and have a watch because, you know, it is utter chaos. And I've tried to muddle through as best I can. And, yeah. That's it, really. And it's pretty much, I think it was very fitting when we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur to have a podcast like that as well. Guesty will say it all happened because he's away. And maybe it was. But that seems a good time to sign off. And yeah, we shall hopefully be back. We'll probably do one early next week. I'm sure there'll be various things happen across this international break, even not taking into account what the players get up to with their respective countries. I'm sure it's Tottenham. There's going to be things happening. Who knows what developments and announcements could be coming our way in the next week or so. So, yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the mayhem if you're watching on YouTube as well. And yes, this has been Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, albeit half of it with Lee Wilmot. And as I said before, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham is sponsored by NordVPN. And to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And in case you missed it, the link is in the podcast episode description box.